Chapter 1. The Men in White Suits. How is it possible to lose a loved one while he or she is still living, still sitting right in front of you, talking with you, smiling at you? And yet, the person you have known and loved for years is somehow gone. You observe the subtle quirks and idiosyncrasies that are occurring with ever-increasing frequency. Yet you are oblivious to the truth, that you are not dealing with the obstinacies or unintentional offenses of an elderly person. You are facing a devastating disease, and possess few tools with which to fight it. Others noticed the changes in my mom before I did. Dave Saunders, a friend who attends the same church as our family, observed Mom shuffling across the atrium toward the main sanctuary. "Did something happen to your mom?" "No. What do you mean?" "She seems to be moving much more slowly than when she was here visiting the last time," Dave observed. "Yeah, she's slowing down a step or two," I agreed. I hadn't really noticed the difference that much, since it was such a gradual process. But others who had not been around Mom could tell that she had changed. That was my first clue that something wasn't right. Mom's demeanor should have piqued my suspicions after the 13th phone call, all in the same morning, but I was oblivious to her true condition. She didn't really need anything, she just wanted to say hello, which she had done in calls number 1, 2, and 3, none of which she remembered dialing. The remaining calls were more of the same, all recorded on my voicemail. "Ken, this is Mom. Just wanted to let you know that I had a good breakfast, bacon and eggs, toast, and prunes, lots of prunes." "Oh, that's great, Mom. I'm glad you're eating well." The second call was identical to the first, and the 11th, 12th, and 13th calls brought little variation. My brothers had warned me, but I had steadfastly resisted the idea that my mother, now 85 years of age in 2007, was not as mentally alert as she had always been. Oh, sure, I had seen signs, but had chosen to interpret them as merely her quirky way of doing things. I hadn't lived near my mom for more than 20 years, so her idiosyncrasies and peccadillos seemed more humorous than irritating to me. I'd noticed some paranoia whenever she'd visit us from Orlando, but I always shrugged off her fretting as simply the fears, real and imagined, of an elderly person who was in a strange environment. One night, around midnight, she called out for me. "Ken, there's a man standing down at the front of the driveway." "What? Huh?" I was half asleep. "No, Mom. There's nobody out there. Go back to bed." "He's right there, Ken. I can see him plain as day." I got out of bed and went to the window, not really expecting to see anything, but willing to check anyhow. I peered out the window into the darkness. Nothing. "There's nobody there, Mom. Go to sleep." "I'm not going to sleep with some man down there staring in your windows." "Mom." I'm not sure which of us was more exasperated, Mom or me. She insisted somebody was snooping around our home, out at the front of our driveway. "He's right there," she fretted. "Mom, there's nobody out there," I said, emphatically, putting my glasses on so I could see more clearly, just to make sure. "Look, there he is," Mom said nervously. "He's moving. He's over there now, standing right at the front of the driveway." I pressed my face up closer to the window and rubbed my eyes as I stared into the darkness again. I didn't see a thing in the driveway, although I noticed the breeze blowing the treetops a bit, creating some unusual shadows on the ground. There was only one thing to do. I turned around and grabbed my mother's hand. "Come on, Mom. We're going down there." Now, don't get the impression that I'm some sort of Rambo character ready at a moment's notice to go kick some butt. No, I don't usually go looking for trouble. But I wasn't worried. I could clearly see from my front windows that there was no trouble in the driveway. A street light was a mere 10 feet away from the entrance of our driveway, illuminating the area sufficiently to show that nobody was out there. But Mom was convinced that a man was standing by our mailbox, so I was intent on proving to her that she was seeing things. "Come on," I said. "We're going down there." "No," she cried. "He might be dangerous. Maybe he has a gun or a club or something." "Mom, nobody is there, and I'm going to show you that. Trust me. Come with me." I tugged her toward the front door. Reluctantly, my mom followed me out the door and down the steps to the sidewalk leading to our driveway. She trudged as slowly as I would allow her, reluctantly traversing the entire length of the driveway, about 100 feet. When we finally arrived at the front of our property, I put my arm around her shoulder and stretched out my hand, pointing in every direction. "What do you see, Mom?" "Nothing." "What about over there?" "No, there's nothing there." "And what about that way?" "Ken, I saw it. There was a man down here and he was looking up at your house." Just then the breeze blew through the trees, causing the leaves to cast an eerie shadow on the entrance to the driveway. Wanting to placate her, yet at the same time hoping to allay her fears, I said, "Maybe that's what you saw, Mom. The leaves rustling in the wind. See how the tree casts a shadow over the mailbox? I can understand how you might have thought that you saw somebody, but I want you to understand that there's nothing to fear." She stared at the tree, and then at the shadows on the brick entryway. "Maybe that's what I saw," she conceded. "Yep, probably so. Let's go back inside and get some sleep." I felt good. I had kindly, yet firmly convinced her that her fears were groundless. My exaltation lasted only a few seconds. Walking back up the driveway, I heard her mumble, "He could be hiding down there in the bushes somewhere. Or maybe he ran off into the woods." It wasn't worth arguing about. That was the first of many similar incidents. Most of them were innocuous, with Mom waking us up in the middle of the night, worried that there were men in white outfits outside in our yard. Once, she got so upset she started crying. "I'm not lying, Ken. There are men out there, at least 6 or 7 of them, and they are wearing white uniforms. I saw them." Seeing the hurt in her eyes nearly crushed me. "I believe you, Mom," I said, wrapping my arm around her shoulder. "I believe you saw something, but look, there's nothing there." A few nights later, I was working in my office when I heard her call out from the guest bedroom upstairs. "Ken, come quickly. They're shining their lights on my window." I bounded out of my chair and ran up the stairs to where Mom was standing in the darkness, dressed in her nightgown, scared stiff. "There," she pointed to the window. "Do you believe me now? Look right there." I looked at the closed Venetian blinds covering the window, and clearly, there was no light shining on them. "I don't see a thing, Mom." "Right there," she shrieked quietly. "Can't you see that light right there? It's moving up and down the blinds." I looked again. At nothing. "There isn't anything there, Mom. No light. Nothing." "Ken, just look." She sounded exasperated. I went over to the blinds, opened and closed them, raised the blinds so I could look out the window. Nothing. "There's nothing there, Mom." "But I saw it." "I believe you saw something, Mom. Maybe your eyes are acting up, or you're developing a cataract problem again, like you had when you were younger. But there's no light, and there's nobody out in the yard. I can see because of the streetlight shining in the yard, and I'm telling you, there's nobody out there." Mom went back to bed, and I went back to work, gloating in my small victory. I had convinced my mom that what she was seeing did not exist. I had no clue that it is almost impossible to convince a person with dementia that he or she is wrong. Your only hope of diffusing the situation is to redirect the conversation. But at the time, I had no idea that Mom had dementia. We learned the hard way that it was no longer safe to leave Mom alone. One night during her visit, my wife, Lisa, and I were scheduled to attend a wedding and sit-down dinner reception. Although we often took Mom along to church events, weddings, graduations, baby showers, and other celebrations, this invitation did not include her, so we felt that it would be inappropriate to take her with us. We even considered not going ourselves, because we didn't want to leave my mother alone. "Oh, I'll be fine," she reassured us. "I'm not afraid to be alone for a while. Hey, I lived by myself in Florida. You two go and have a good time." "Well, okay," I said, with visions of men in white suits dancing through my mind. "We're going to the wedding, but we won't be long. We'll be back around 8 o'clock. Call me on my cell phone if you have any problems or need anything." The wedding ran a little longer than anticipated, and although we stayed only briefly at the reception, it turned out to be just long enough for our home to be surrounded by the men in white uniforms. Shortly after 8 p.m., Lisa and I left the reception and headed home. As I drove, we got caught up, talking merrily about what a beautiful wedding and reception it had been, and I completely forgot about checking my cell phone messages. We were only 15 minutes away from home, so I didn't even think about turning my phone back on. Until we pulled down the road, leading to our driveway. The moment I saw the flashing red lights atop the police car in our driveway, my heart nearly stopped. I pulled in behind the police car, jumped out of our vehicle, where I was met by 2 armed police officers. "Mr. Abraham?" "Yes, sir." "Mr. Abraham, I'm Officer Thomas, and this is Officer Jones. Your mother called us and reported that there were intruders around or inside your home. We responded immediately to the call, and we searched every room in your house. There are no intruders, and nothing seems to be disturbed." Nothing except Mom, I thought. "Thank you, gentlemen. I really appreciate you watching out for us. My mom gets a little nervous these days." "You're an author, huh?" Officer Thomas asked. "Yes, sir, I am." "Yeah. Your mom showed us around your office. You have quite a library, and your name is on a lot of books." Yes. My mom is rather proud of me." "She sure is," Officer Jones chimed in. "She showed us every book you've ever written." "She did?" At that time, I'd written more than 70 books. "Oh yeah, she sure did." "Well, thanks again, officers. I'm sorry she bothered you." "Oh, no bother, Mr. Abraham. Nice to meet you." The policemen waved and walked to their car. Yeah, nice to meet you too." I forced a smile as I waved goodbye to the officers and moved my car so they could get around me. Once inside the house, I confronted my mom. "Mom, what in the world were you thinking? Why did you call the police?" Mom was immediately defensive. "I didn't call the police. I called 911. "Around here, that's calling the police." "Well, there were men outside in the yard, and I got scared." "Mom." "And those policemen. The first thing they asked me when they came up on the porch and I answered the doorbell was, 'Ma'am, are you on any medication?' They didn't ask about the prowlers. They didn't ask me if I was hurt. All they asked was whether I was taking medication. What do they care whether or not I'm on medication? It's none of their business. Maybe not, Mom, I said. But it is their business when people call them out on false alarms, when there's no real threat of danger. I didn't call the police. I called 911. That's right. And don't you ever do that again while you're at our house, unless the house is on fire. Mom sulked as she went off to bed, and we didn't hear anything more from her for the rest of the night. Despite recurring incidents regarding the men in white outfits lurking in our yard, I didn't consider Mom's hallucinations anything more than a family joke, an aberration, something to laugh about after Thanksgiving dinner when telling family stories with my brothers and their family members. I didn't know then what I learned later, that what we were dealing with were the beginning signs of dementia.